After a tax bill in 2007, he was forced into paying $6 million while selling his own belongings.
So, my husband and I are $60,000 in debt.
Welcome back to Law Unpacked. I'm your host, Sean DeVries. And today, we're diving into a topic that confuses and intimidates a lot of people. Bankruptcy. When most people hear the word bankruptcy, they think it's a last resort, a personal failure, or something that will follow them for life. But that's simply not true. In fact, there's a ton of misinformation out there, especially when it comes to Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And today, we're here to set the record straight. By the end of this episode, not only will you feel more informed, but you'll see that bankruptcy is actually a powerful tool designed to help people regain control and start fresh. Whether you're dealing with overwhelming debt or just curious about how bankruptcy works, stick around. We're going to break down 10 common myths about bankruptcy and shed light on what's real and what's not. Let's go ahead and get started with myth number 1. Bankruptcy will ruin my credit forever.
So, my husband and I are $60,000 in debt. Let me explain how we got here. In June of 2022, we had a good amount of savings and decided that our home that we've been living in for a couple years just needed some maintenance and some upgrade. You can see behind me, we live in like a very normal house, but there were some things like on the outside where our stucco was falling off, so we needed to have that repaired. We had our house painted, we upgraded our bathroom a little bit, and also decided to pay off my husband's private student loan because the interest is not great. And so we had plenty of savings and we decided to just drain those bad boys. We both had really stable jobs. We would be able to squirrel away some money over time and build back up our savings again. 2 weeks later, unexpectedly, I was laid off from my job. And I'm the breadwinner of our household, so it did not go well. I was unemployed for about 7 months. Thank goodness I had social media to keep us afloat for a little bit, but here's the deal. We had to put a lot of stuff on credit card to be able to keep ourselves afloat. So anything that could go on a credit card went on a credit card. And that allowed my husband's income to pay for our mortgage, our car payments, our daycare, things like that. But everything else went on a credit card. We cut back as much as we could, but there's still a lot of expenses. We finally decided to do a debt consolidation loan, and it's about $65,000. And we're gonna try and pay it off. We did a 5-year loan plan, but we're gonna try and pay it off in the next 2 years. That's our goal. If our kids gets out of daycare this year, we've spent $36,000 a year on daycare. So one of them graduates this year, the other one goes to VPK, so that'll save us a little bit of money. Our hopes are that we're able to put a lot of what we were already paying for daycare towards this loan and get it paid off sooner than planned. But your girl loves to shop, so I'm gonna have to do to keep myself accountable to this. So I'm coming on the internet and telling you what my deepest, darkest secret. Buying a puppy when you're in $60,000 of credit card debt is not a good idea. I'm just saying that.
That video really highlights the stress so many people are under. Piling debt, sudden life changes, and trying to hold everything together. $60,000 in debt isn't just a number. It's sleepless nights, constant worry, and a feeling of drowning. It's exhausting to keep up with payments when life throws curveballs, like layoffs or unexpected expenses. A lot of people fear that filing for bankruptcy will ruin their credit forever. But let's break that down. The idea that bankruptcy will destroy your credit for life is one of the biggest myths. In reality, Chapter 7 bankruptcy gives you a chance to wipe the slate clean and rebuild your credit, often faster than people expect. Yes, it's a hit to your credit initially, but your score is likely already suffering from missed payments and maxed out cards. Filing for bankruptcy could be the first step to financial recovery. When you're buried under $60,000 or $100,000 in debt, your credit is already struggling. Bankruptcy can remove a lot of that weight and give you the fresh start you need. In fact, many people start rebuilding their credit almost immediately after their debts are discharged. I want to share a real example of someone who raised their credit score to 720 with just 1 year of filing for Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
Up all late night, baby girl, okay. It wasn't a plan, baby girl. Skip the beat, carry a bus like greed the freak. She's up there, go me.
See, bankruptcy isn't the end of your financial life. It's a new beginning. This brings me to a resource I trust and recommend to all of my clients, 720creditscore.com. They offer a step-by-step program designed specifically for people recovering from bankruptcy, helping you rebuild your credit quickly and effectively. Many people see their credit score jump into the 700s within a year, just like we saw with this story. And I'm thrilled to announce that we'll have the founder of 720creditscore.com on a future episode of Law Unpacked to explain the exact steps for rebuilding credit after bankruptcy. You won't want to miss it. So if you're feeling like your financial situation is hopeless, know this. Bankruptcy does not ruin your credit forever. It's a tool designed to help you get back on your feet. With the right resources and guidance like 720creditscore.com, you can rebuild your credit and start fresh, financially and emotionally. Let's talk about another big myth. Bankruptcy means you're a failure. This belief is often tied to shame or embarrassment. But here's the truth. Life happens. Financial hardships don't discriminate, and bankruptcy is a tool meant to help, not define your success or your failure. Some of the biggest names out there faced bankruptcy.
4 celebrities who once went bankrupt. Number 1, Nicolas Cage. From the mid-90s, Cage bought new homes, cars, and was known for his collection of artifacts. Between the years of 1996 and 2011, rumors suggested that he had spent his $150 million net worth. After a tax bill in 2007, several properties had a tax lien placed on them, and he was forced into paying $6 million while selling his own belongings. Number 2, Mike Tyson. Back in 2003, he owed money to everybody from the British tax authorities and the IRS to a music producer. He soon paid $9 million as part of a divorce, and even fell behind with child support, worth nearly $700 million at the height of his career. His net worth was as low as $3 million in 2020. Number 3, Michael Jackson. Jackson's money problems got worse once he was involved in numerous expensive lawsuits and interest on his debt increased. At the time of his death, a forensic accountant estimated that Jackson owed $400 to $500 million. Number 4, Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds was a big movie star from the 60s to 80s, but was forced to declare bankruptcy in the 90s. The movie star spent heavily on real estate, a private jet, 150 horses, and over $100,000 in toupees in the 80s. After an expensive marriage to Lonnie Anderson, Reynolds experienced an expensive divorce and couldn't pay back a $3.7 million loan to CBS and declared bankruptcy in 1996.
Nicolas Cage, Mike Tyson, even Michael Jackson? If bankruptcy made them failures, would they have achieved the heights they did? I think not. Bankruptcy is just a financial reset. Bankruptcy doesn't define your worth. It's a legal tool to help people regain control of their finances. Think of it like a tool in a toolbox. From celebrities to everyday folks, sometimes life throws challenges that are impossible to manage alone. And bankruptcy is there to help reset and rebuild. Take Mike Tyson. He was worth $700 million at one point. But after financial hits like divorce and unpaid taxes, he filed for bankruptcy in 2003. Did that make him a failure? Absolutely not. It gave him a chance to recover and rebuild his life. One thing Mike Tyson's always said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So if you're thinking bankruptcy equals failure, think again. No matter where you are in life, don't let shame or fear hold you back. Myth number 3. I'll lose everything if I file for bankruptcy. Let's talk about one of the biggest fears people have about bankruptcy. If I file for bankruptcy, I'm going to lose everything. It's a fear I hear all the time. And honestly, I understand where it comes from. The idea of losing your home, your car, or your personal belongings is terrifying, especially when you've worked so hard for them. But here's the truth. That fear is overblown. Most people who file for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy don't lose their homes, cars, or personal belongings. There are legal protections called exemptions that allow you to keep essential items. This way you can maintain your daily life. Let's break this down a bit further. In Florida, the homestead exemption is one of the strongest in the country, protecting equity in your primary residence. So long as you're up to date on your mortgage payments, you're very unlikely to lose your home. The same goes for your car. You can even protect a certain amount of equity in your vehicle. As of July 1st, 2024, that amount went from $1,000 up to $5,000 of equity. And if you're still paying off your car loan, as long as you keep making payments, you can keep your car. There are even exemptions for your personal property, things like your furniture, clothes, and electronics. Bankruptcy isn't about stripping you of everything. It's about giving you a fair chance to get back on your feet. I remember a client who came in absolutely panicked, convinced that filing for bankruptcy would mean losing their home, their car, and everything they owned. They had tried so hard to keep up with their debt, but simply couldn't anymore. Once we went through the exemptions, they realized they wouldn't lose their house or their car. And filing for Chapter 7 was one of the best decisions they could make. Not only did they get rid of their crushing debt, but they kept the things that mattered most to them. So let's put this myth to rest once and for all. You will not lose everything if you file for bankruptcy. The law is built to protect you and your essential assets. If you've been avoiding bankruptcy because you're scared of losing everything, take a deep breath and know that bankruptcy is designed to help, not harm you. The goal is to give you a fresh start, free from overwhelming debt, while allowing you to keep the essentials you need to live your life. Myth 4. You can't file for bankruptcy if you have a job. And it's simply not true. In fact, I'd almost say it's the furthest thing from truth. We want people to work. We want people to have employment. Here's the reality. Having a job doesn't disqualify you from filing for bankruptcy. In fact, most of the people I help are working professionals. The question isn't about whether you have a job. It's about whether your income meets the eligibility requirement for a Chapter 7. Let's talk a little bit about the means test. This is what determines if you qualify for a Chapter 7. It looks at your income over the past 6 months and compares it to the median income for a household of your size in your state. If your income is below the median, you're likely eligible for a Chapter 7. But even if you earn above the median, you may still qualify, especially if your necessary expenses, like mortgage or medical bills, leave you with little left to cover your debts. So let's debunk this myth once and for all. Having a job doesn't prevent you from filing bankruptcy. Whether you work full-time, part-time, or juggle multiple jobs, bankruptcy is still an option if your debt has become unmanageable. If you've been holding back because you think your job disqualifies you from bankruptcy, it's time to reconsider. Bankruptcy is there to help people get out from under overwhelming debt. No matter their employment status, if you're struggling, don't hesitate to explore your options. We're here to guide you through the process every step of the way. Myth number 5. Bankruptcy clears all your debts. All right, while bankruptcy can wipe out a lot of debt, it doesn't magically make every financial obligation disappear. Chapter 7 bankruptcy can get rid of most unsecured debts. These are your credit cards, your buy now, pay later, medical bills, and personal loans. These types of debts get discharged, meaning you no longer have to pay them once the bankruptcy process is complete. For many people, this provides huge relief, freeing them from the weight of debt collectors and overwhelming balances. However, not all debts are discharged through bankruptcy. There are some exceptions, like student loan debt, child support and alimony obligations, certain tax debts, and court fines or criminal restitution. So while bankruptcy wipes out a lot of debt, some obligations will remain. I had a client who came in thinking bankruptcy would clear all their debts, including student loans and tax debts. After discussing their options, they understood that while bankruptcy could eliminate their credit card and medical debt, they'd still need to address their student loans and newer tax debts. Bankruptcy gave them relief from the crushing debt and allowed them to focus on managing the rest. So let's debunk this myth. Bankruptcy doesn't clear all your debts, but it does wipe out a significant portion of unsecured debt, like credit cards and medical bills. It's not a magic wand for everything, but it's a powerful tool to help you regain control of your finances. If you're thinking about bankruptcy and wondering what debts can be cleared, remember, it's about understanding what works for you. Bankruptcy may not eliminate everything, but it can lighten your load and give you the chance to rebuild. Myth number 6. You have to be delinquent on your debts to file bankruptcy. Let's clear that up immediately. This is a myth that keeps a lot of people from seeking help. You have to be delinquent on your debts to file for bankruptcy. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, "But I've been making my minimum payments, so I must not be eligible." This misconception can make people hesitate, but it's far from the truth. The reality is, you don't have to be behind on your debts to file for bankruptcy. Yes, it is true that many people who file are behind on their payments, but that's not a requirement for bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is about whether your debts have become unmanageable. Even if you've never missed a payment, if your financial situation is spiraling and your income isn't enough to cover your debts, bankruptcy could still be an option. In fact, some people file for bankruptcy before they fall behind. They see the writing on the wall. They're using credit cards to pay for necessities or borrowing from one debt to pay another. And they realize it's only a matter of time before they can't keep up. Filing before you're delinquent can actually prevent further damage to your credit score. Instead of waiting until you're months behind, you can file while you're current and avoid a deeper financial hole. I recently worked with a client who was in this exact situation. They've been juggling multiple credit card payments, never missing a due date, but it was becoming impossible to keep up. They were worried that since they weren't behind on payments, bankruptcy wasn't an option. After we reviewed their financial situation, they realized filing before they fell behind was actually the smartest move. It allowed them to get a fresh start without the stress of falling deeper into debt. So let's debunk this myth. You do not have to be delinquent on your debts to file for bankruptcy. If your financial situation is overwhelming, even if you've made every payment, bankruptcy is still an option to explore. One of the biggest mistakes people make is waiting until they're deeply behind on their payments before considering bankruptcy. The truth is, filing sooner can actually help you. It can help you recover faster and protect your credit from further damage. If you're struggling to keep up, don't wait until it's too late. So if you're thinking, "I've been making my payments, so bankruptcy isn't for me," I want you to reconsider. You don't have to wait until you're in serious financial trouble to get help. Myth number 7. Let's talk about another common concern I hear from people all the time. Filing for bankruptcy is too expensive. Sounds counterintuitive, right? You're already in financial trouble, and now you have to pay to get out of it? But let's take a closer look, because this myth is one of the most misunderstood aspects of bankruptcy. First off, let's talk about the actual costs. In most cases, the cost of filing for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy can range anywhere between $1,500 to $3,500 for attorney's fees. Plus, it's going to cost you about $338 for court filing fees. Yes, these numbers might seem high when you're already in debt, but let's put this into perspective. When compared to the thousands of dollars in debt that the bankruptcy can discharge, it's a small price to pay for a fresh financial start. Think of a bankruptcy as an investment in your financial future. Let's say you're carrying $50,000 in credit card debt. With interest piling on, it could take years, maybe even decades to pay it off. Bankruptcy allows you to clear that debt quickly, giving you the opportunity to move forward without the crushing weight of those payments. That upfront cost of filing, it pales in comparison to the financial freedom you can gain in return. Here's another important point. Depending on the area where you file, many law firms, including ours, offer flexible payment plans. You don't have to come up with all that money at once. We work with clients to make the cost manageable, so they can start the bankruptcy process without feeling like they're digging themselves into a deeper hole. And in certain cases, reduced or waived filing fees might be available if your situation is extreme. I had a client who was absolutely convinced they couldn't afford to file bankruptcy. They were drowning in debt, paying interest on credit cards that they couldn't even chip away at. But after we looked at the numbers, they realized that the cost of filing for bankruptcy was far less than what they were paying in interest alone each month. They went ahead with the filing and discharged $40,000 in debt, and finally got their financial freedom back. So let's debunk this myth. Yes, there are costs to filing for bankruptcy, but it's often the most affordable option when compared to years of paying off high-interest debt. Bankruptcy gives you a way out, and that upfront cost is an investment in a brighter financial future. If you've been worried about the cost of filing for bankruptcy, I want you to know that's more affordable than you think. Don't let the fear of cost stop you from getting the help you need and you deserve. We're here to work with you, offer payment plans, and figure out what makes sense for your financial situation. Let's talk about how bankruptcy can be the best investment you can make in your future. Now, this next myth is one that comes up a lot. Myth number 8. Bankruptcy discharges student loans. I completely understand why so many people hope this is true, especially the overwhelming amount of student debt there is out there, including myself, who is over 6 figures in student loan debt. Unfortunately, the reality is, discharging student loans through bankruptcy is rare. Though, recent changes are making it more achievable in certain cases. For years, the rule has been that student loans are nearly impossible to discharge in bankruptcy unless you can prove undue hardship. This is a legal standard that's been incredibly difficult to meet, which is why most people don't even try. They assume student loan debt is untouchable. But here's the good news. Things are starting to change. In 2022, the Department of Education and the Department of Justice introduced a new process to make it easier for people to prove undue hardship and potentially discharge federal student loans in bankruptcy. It's not automatic, but the guidelines are clear, and more people are successfully getting the relief for student loan debt through bankruptcy. So what does this mean for you? It means that if you're struggling with federal student loan debt, there may be more options than before to seek relief through bankruptcy. Keep in mind, though, this process applies mainly to federal student loans. Private student loans are still much harder to discharge. If you're considering bankruptcy and have student loans, you should talk to an experienced bankruptcy attorney to explore what's possible in your case. So while bankruptcy doesn't automatically discharge student loans, there's a growing opportunity for relief under certain conditions. It's a myth that bankruptcy clears student loans completely, but new options are emerging for those who qualify under the undue hardship standard. If you're weighed down by student loans and wondering whether bankruptcy can help, I want you to know that while it's challenging, it's not impossible. There are new processes in place that may provide relief. It's worth exploring your options, and we're here to help you navigate the complexities. Myth number 9. You can only file for bankruptcy once. Here's a myth that catches a lot of people by surprise. You can only file for bankruptcy once. I get why this myth exists. Bankruptcy is often seen as a last-ditch effort, so people assume it's a one-time only option, but the reality is that's not true. You can file for bankruptcy more than once. Though there are specific rules about how often you can do it, here's how it really works. You can file for bankruptcy more than once, but there are waiting periods depending on the type of bankruptcy you filed previously and the type you're filing now. For instance, if you filed for a Chapter 7 and received a discharge, you have to wait 8 years before you can file for another Chapter 7. But if you're switching from a Chapter 7 to a Chapter 13, you only have to wait 4 years. The important thing to note is that filing for bankruptcy more than once is possible, but the timing does matter. It's all about understanding the rules for your particular situation. We get it. Life's unpredictable. Even after a fresh start, people face new financial challenges. You could go through a bankruptcy, get back on your feet, and then years later face something unexpected. A medical emergency, a divorce, or job loss. That sends you back into financial trouble. The good news is bankruptcy laws are there to give you that second chance if you need it. I had a client who filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy over a decade ago after losing their job and falling into credit card debt. They rebuilt their life and were doing great, but years later, a medical emergency left them buried in new debt. This time, we helped them file for Chapter 13 to reorganize their debts, allowing them to keep their home and other assets that they acquired and manage their payments. Filing for a bankruptcy a second time wasn't a waste of time or a failure. It was a way for them to keep moving forward after another financial setback. So let's debunk this myth once and for all. You can file for bankruptcy more than once, but there are rules about when and how you can do it. Life doesn't always go as planned, and bankruptcy is there to give you the flexibility to get back on track when financial challenges arise. If you filed bankruptcy before and you're wondering whether you can do it again, know that you have options. There are time frames to consider, but bankruptcy laws are designed to help. Even if you find yourself in the need of a fresh start more than once, we're here to walk you through the process and help you figure out what's best for your situation. Myth number 10, and I have to say, this is one of the most frequently asked questions that I get. Can you pick and choose which debts to include in a bankruptcy? Sounds reasonable, right? I mean, why wouldn't you want to keep paying off certain debts while getting rid of others? You have had this credit card since you were in college and you've always been a good payer, so you want to keep that. Helps your credit score. Well, unfortunately, the reality is bankruptcy doesn't work that way. When you file for bankruptcy, you have to include all of your debts. You can't cherry pick which debts to list and which ones to keep paying off. Whether it's a personal loan from a friend, a car loan, or medical bills, everything must be disclosed in your bankruptcy paperwork. The court will notify all your creditors, and the process ensures that everyone gets treated fairly. I know it might feel like you should be able to keep paying off certain debts, maybe a loan from a family member or a debt you feel particularly obligated to pay, but bankruptcy law requires full transparency. It's built on the principle that all creditors should be treated equally. According to the legal process, if you could pick and choose which debts to exclude, it wouldn't be fair to the other creditors involved. Let me explain how this works. When you file for your bankruptcy, all of your debts, both secured and unsecured, are included in the process. Secured debts are tied to an asset, like your mortgage or car loan. You'll need to decide whether to keep paying these debts and keep the asset, or surrender the asset and discharge the debt. For example, if you want to keep your car, you'll continue making those payments. Unsecured debts like credit cards or medical bills can often be discharged entirely through Chapter 7, meaning you won't have to pay them back after the bankruptcy process is over. I had a client who came in wanting to discharge credit card debt, but didn't want to include a loan from a close friend. They were worried about damaging the relationship if they listed that debt in the bankruptcy. We discussed how full disclosure is required. And while it was tough, they understood it was the best way to move forward. They ended up talking to their friend who was understanding, and the client was still able to get that fresh start. So let's debunk this myth. When you file for bankruptcy, you must include all of your debts. It might feel uncomfortable to list every single creditor, but it's the only way to ensure the process is fair and gives you a true fresh start. If you're thinking about bankruptcy but worried about how it will affect certain debts, I want you to know that the process is designed to help you, not harm you. We're here to guide you through the process and make sure you're fully informed every step of the way. This episode, we've tackled 10 of the most common myths about bankruptcy. If today's episode had helped clear up some of the misconceptions you've heard, I hope you're starting to feel a little bit more empowered and informed about your options. Now here's what I want you to do. If you're feeling overwhelmed by debt and unsure of the next step, don't wait until it's too late. Reach out to us for a free consultation. We'll walk you through your situation, answer any questions you have, and help you understand whether bankruptcy or even another solution is the right path for you. You don't have to carry this burden all alone. We're here to help you navigate the process and give you the fresh start you deserve. Visit our website at www.devrieslegal.com or give us a call at 904-348-0030 to set up your free consultation today. This is just the first episode in our series on busting bankruptcy myths. In the next episode, we'll be busting more myths and giving you even more insight into how Chapter 7 bankruptcy really works. So make sure you subscribe to Law Unpacked and tune in for our next episode. Thanks for joining me today, and remember, bankruptcy is not the end of your story. It's a new beginning. I'm Sean DeVries, and this is Law Unpacked.